I want to
Um,
introduce our mentor who we have with you today. Um, I want you all to be inspired. Dr. Stephanie Placidos is a powerhouse of resilience, creativity, innovation. She's a Harvard, John Hopkins, and Northwestern University trained clinical psychologist with over 14 years of experience in mental wellness, leadership development, and entrepreneurship. Growing up as a first generation Latina and the eldest daughter of immigrants, she knows firsthand what it means to turn challenges into opportunities. And she's not just a psychologist, she's also a serial entrepreneur. So we're taking best of both worlds here. She's someone who's studied all this stuff, but she's also someone who's lived it, which is very hard to find sometimes. So she's studied at these amazing universities, and she herself is an entrepreneur. She's co-founded a tech startup focused on workplace mental health and has created game-changing programs for big names like Fortune 500 companies and top universities. She's delivered over 1,000 workshops around the world, helping people unlock their potential and chase their dreams. In this workshop, she's going to be sharing how resilience, creativity, and staying true to your values can help you succeed, not just in business, but also in life. So, everyone, can we give a little round of applause and welcome Dr. Stephanie coming up? Dr. Stephanie. Woo!
Hi, everyone. So for me, it is 7:42 in the morning. So good morning. I'm happy to be here with you all. If it's evening, good evening. So this is going to be a really casual meetup. I am happy to be here with you all. We're going to talk. I'm going to share about my own journey. I'm going to invite you guys to answer a lot of different questions to learn more about yourself and how you can have a mindset for success. Any questions that you have, the easiest way to do it is either, send them to Brian or raise a hand. Yep, I already see a hand up. Or go ahead and unmute yourself. That really is the easiest way for us to go about this because I have a few screens going on and I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. So yes, Advarsha Shetty, what's up?
Hi.
Hi.
Actually, my name is Adira Shetty. I just joined in for my dad's account. So I just wanted to know that how was like how hard was the journey to being an entrepreneur?
It was hard, but it was also worth it. I think, and we'll go into that a good amount today, but I think if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you still have difficulties, but you tend to enjoy them. And you tend to see failure and when people say no to you as a moment of growth. So I think being an entrepreneur means hearing no a lot. It means hoping for things and then it doesn't happen. So you have to try multiple times in multiple different ways to get down the path that you're making for yourself. But if you're an entrepreneur, you don't focus on that in a way that makes it a failure. You focus on it in a way that says, okay, I can grow. What can I learn from this to help me be even better next time? And the growing is part of the entrepreneurial journey. So I think if you have that type of a mindset, being an entrepreneur is hard, but it's a lot of fun. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions right off the bat before we get started?
Yeah, we got a few. Let's hear from Aditi.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Stephanie. I wanted to ask
Hi.
you, why did you go into psychology? Out of all the fields in medicine, why did you choose psychology?
Great question. So I actually started in medicine. I had a lot, I'm a first generation Latina. My parents are Colombian and Mexican, and I was born in the US. And so there was three different cultures going on in my house. It was, the American culture, the Colombian culture, and the Mexican culture. And with my parents and being the daughter of immigrants, the dream was be a doctor. And so I had a lot of pressure about that. I went into medicine because I truly thought I wanted to be a doctor. But I got into college, I started taking all the classes for it, and I realized I am miserable. I am not interested in this subject the way I thought I was. Um, and I had a few different conversations with my parents, and I decided, let me figure out what I'm really good at and what I really love doing. And I think that intersection is how I got to psychology. So I loved learning about how the mind worked. I love learning about how do people think, why do they think that way, and how do people change? And those questions tend to be questions that you see in psychology. So I went for a master's degree first. I wanted to learn more about therapy. And once I learned about it, I realized I actually don't really want to do therapy. I want to take all the knowledge that I learned as a therapist and help people on a larger scale. And I think that was my entrepreneurial side coming out. And that's when I went for the doctorate instead. I learned how to assess people. I learned even more how to help people with their psyche. And that's how I got into making workshops. So, as Brian mentioned, I've designed and given over 1,000 at this point. My specialty is stress management and mindfulness. I've also done a good amount of research. And then I went into the tech world and I founded a tech startup focused on workplace mental well being. So, helping remote teams feel a higher sense of connection and belonging. And now I have my own consulting firm. So I work with Fortune 500s, I work with universities, helping them with their strategy. So that was my path. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Any
we'll
other
take
ones?
one more
Yeah,
and then
sounds good.
Avani.
What was your most challenging part in your entrepreneurship?
Hi, Evni. My most challenging part in my entrepreneurship, let me think. I think the most challenging part was especially when I started the tech startup, when I was co-founding it. I did that for about 2.5 to 3 years. And I made no money in that time. $0 made. So what did that mean? I had to have a plan. I saved up for years and years, and my plan was not originally to go into tech. My plan was to immediately start my consulting company. So I always worked at the same time that I was in school. I was saving as much as I could. And so when the time came, I actually decided to do the tech thing first instead of my consulting. And so that nest egg that I had built up, my savings, I had to use up my savings for everything: rent, food, transportation, also sometimes you want to have fun with your friends, clothing. Everything had to come out of my savings. And that was difficult. It was really difficult. I got used to working and I got used to tying my success to how much money I was making. And when you have, 2.5 years of no income, sometimes that can start to bring up questions like, am I doing something wrong? You hear all these stories about entrepreneurs that are like, oh, in my first year, I made $1 million. I made $600,000. And I was like, I'm going on year 3 and I've made $0. But we have great relationships that we're building. We have a great product that we're building. We worked with tons of fantastic brands. We got into an accelerator program with Google. And so again, it had to do with the mindset of how are you defining success? For me, it was growing. It was learning. I wanted to learn about what it was like to be in the tech world. I wanted to learn how to develop a product using my psychology skills. And ultimately, I decided to leave because I thought I've had enough of the journey. I've reached what I want from this journey, and I feel like I've been able to make a great impact. And now I'll go into my consulting, which is where my heart always was. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
That's a great question. I want to take maybe one or two more. I'm loving these questions. You guys are coming with really good stuff here. I see Vanya's had her hand raised. Vanya, question?
Hello.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So you're expert in stress management, right? And
Yes.
you're running a business. So how do you personally manage stress while running a business? Like basically, how do you handle moments of burnout in your business?
That is an amazing question. Okay. I love that because on the one hand, my company is all about helping other people with their stress management. But obviously, that means I have to be managing my own stress of being an entrepreneur, of studying. I did graduate school for 17 years after college. I'm sorry, that was including college. So, stress management is an essential part of the equation. What it looks like for me, I've learned the hard way that there's a lot of different parts to the formula. For example, a lot of us tend to think that the formula to success means going nonstop. And I used to be like that. I was very type A, little sleep, working really hard all the time. And yes, I did get great results that way, but I also burnt out. And everyone will burn out if you do it that way. So the ideal thing that I learned how to do as I got older was to balance how many hours a day you start to track your own activity and your own energy levels, and you find out what time of day do I work best at. And when you know that time of day, that's when you do the best work. So I can say, okay, I can do my best work during these 3 hours. And then the next hour, I'm going to take for myself. I'm going to do something that helps me feel replenished, not relaxed, replenished. So for me, that was nature. So I have moved around a lot over the years. I've lived in Denver by the mountains. I've lived in Boston when I was at Harvard, and I would always go out into nature. I would take a walk. I would go into the mountains. I would go by the river. And that really helped me to feel like, to remind myself that life is so much more than just the thing that you're working on at the time. And so that was one way I did that. Sleep, I learned, was really important. So I started to have a sleep routine and be very protective of it. And then boundaries. Boundaries is incredibly important as you go into the entrepreneurial journey. I think out of many different fields like medicine, like psychology, like entrepreneurship, you tend to be asked to push your boundaries a lot. People want you to work very late hours. People want you to work double the amount. Sometimes they don't want to pay a whole lot. And so you have to start learning, where do I draw the line and say, this is what I can do and what I'm willing to do. And this is where I have to walk away, or this is where I have to say, I need this time for myself, or unfortunately, I can't meet that request, but this is what I can do for you. And that really helped with my own valuing myself, and then being able to keep my energy high. Does that answer your question?
In India, like sleep is inversely proportional to the work you're doing.
Yep. And that's really the case in the US as well, especially. So I was a clinical psychologist at Northwestern University, Johns Hopkins University, University of Colorado Boulder. So they're all very top level universities. It's very high achievers. And that tends to be the case in those institutions as well. The students sleep very little and achieve a lot. But also, our counseling center had a wait list of 6 months because all of those students were so burnt out.
Wow.
And so it's sad. If you're finishing college and you're already so exhausted and you haven't even started your career, you're not doing things right. So it's important to get that as early as you can, to get a nice balance going, understanding that sleep does not get in the way. Sleep is the way. Sleep is part of the formula that helps you to succeed, because we all know when we get a good night's sleep, our energy is good, our ability to focus is a lot better, our emotional balance is a lot better. So all those things are going to help you to be so much better than someone who gets less sleep.
Yeah. Such great. I hope everyone's taking notes. Such great advice and tips there from her personal experience. Even just hearing that, it made me reflect back when I was studying at University of California, Santa Barbara. During finals week, when we had our the finals week, they brought in dogs to the library for all the students to pet and play with. Like, they brought in like 30 golden retrievers from some rescue place. And then so during finals, when people are studying and stress was so high, we'd go out and we'd play with the dogs, play fetch, we'd pet them, we could feed them. And that really helps. And we're doing it outside on the grass, and that really helps lower stress. It just made me think back to that memory, how impactful just having animals can be.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. UCSB is a fantastic institution. I didn't know you went there. I actually work with their AI lab. So I do AI training as well for psychological AI. Yeah.
Very cool. We'll have to do a follow-up. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think we have time for one more question, and then we have to move on. But I know Shreya, you've had your hand up for a while now.
Yeah. Hi, Dr.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Hi,
So
nice to meet you.
I'm currently a grade 12 student. So, we have entrance exams coming up. We're applying to unis and it's like super hectic right now. And I think I've sort of fallen into a slump because of the overstimulation. And then
Mhm.
it's just days of procrastination and then like wanting to do it, making lists, but then by the time you actually sit down, you're like, I have time. And then, it's just like a constant cycle. So how do I stop myself from, procrastinating so much and actually, get work done?
I am writing in the chat right now. Give me one sec.
Mhm.
Double checking that I have her name spelled right. Okay. I would want you to look at this, put that into Google and look into that a little bit. And also, um, now you may already know this stuff, so I apologize if this is too rudimentary, but those are honestly my go-tos when someone is in your position. So I'll touch on these really briefly. 7 types of rest. Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith has done research on this, and now it's kind of like blown up. Everyone's writing articles about it and posting about it on blogs. But essentially, it's the difference between relaxation and replenishing. She calls it rest. But really, it's when your mind is that exhausted that you're not really able to take in much more, right? You kind of might feel like you're almost at your breaking point, like you're just exhausted. You're trying your best, but you can feel yourself slowing down and kind of dwindling down. But yet your stress is really, really high. This is your body's way and your mind's way of letting you know that as much as you want what's coming up, you have to balance self-care. Now, the easiest way to do that so that you can still feel that you're still being productive, let's say, because that's oftentimes the issue, you look at 7 types of rest. So there are 7 different categories, 7 different ways that you can help your mind and your body to feel replenished that is not sleep. And so I would consider looking at that. As you look at the different types. So for example, there's like creative rest, there's physical rest, there's spiritual rest, 7 different types. One or more of those are really going to align with the kind of person you are, with your interests. Oh, thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, that is fantastic. So here we have the different types of rest right here. So for all of you, when you start feeling really overwhelmed, go to this diagram, go to this type of research, 7 types of rest, and you figure out which one of these are you craving. The one that you are craving is the one that you need. All you need to do is give yourself 15 minutes. You can do more, and more is ideal, but base level, if you give yourself 15 minutes of this, I promise you'll start to feel better. 15 minutes a day. I'll give you as a quick example. I was working very recently. There's an organization in Boston, the Social Innovation Forum, and they work with exclusively executive leadership in nonprofits. And so I come in a few times a year. I do workshops with them, and I even do 8 and 10 week mindfulness programs. And during that time, we always go to this. And we do a project together. Every single executive leader picks one type of rest that they want to do every single day, and they do it for 15 minutes. They commit to it without fail. I've been doing this 3 years now. Every time we do it, the very next week, because we meet every week, they come back and everyone is feeling replenished. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was possible to feel this much better in only 15 minutes a day. And they find really creative ways to do it, ways that are very personal and speak to their own lifestyle. So I highly recommend go to this, give yourself, carve out 15 minutes and do this. The second thing that I put into the chat is SMART. So it's SMART planning. So it's like SMART goals, which I know is also really popular right now. But it's when you are working toward a bigger goal that can feel pretty overwhelming. Let's just say like a university application. We understand that is the big goal. Think of it as the umbrella. And now you're going to break it down into smaller pieces like a pyramid that to get you to the top. And all you have to do is focus on one piece at a time. And that's going to help it feel a lot more doable. Thank you. So this is the acronym. It stands for a model, the SMART model. And you go through this, and for each goal you make, you break it down into things that meet this criteria. So you're applying to a university. I'm going to say, explain to me all the different steps that you need to do as part of the application. So sometimes the applications themselves are even organized into sections, right? So it's like personal information, academic information, upload your transcripts, write 3 essays. Let's just go that, right? Letters of recommendation. We have 5 things right there. I would tell you those are your 5 main goals now. And now you're only going to dedicate yourself to one, and you're going to forget about the others. You create a timeline for yourself, and you give yourself permission to say, I know I'm going to get to the others, but so that I don't feel overwhelmed, I'm only going to focus on this one for the next week, let's say. And for that week, you take that one goal. So let's just say it's, the personal information, which sometimes can be really daunting. It's like a really long scrolling page, and you have to enter all your information. So you go through this model. I'm going to take that section. To finish that section is my goal. Is it specific? Yes. Is it measurable? Yes. When you finish that section, you'll know that you've met that goal. Is it attainable? What's that?
Oh, I love, sorry to interrupt you. I wanted just, a few people are messaging me in the chat.
Yeah.
If everyone could maybe just share one goal that they have in the chat,
Let's do that.
that would be amazing. Yeah.
I would love to see that.
If anyone wants to throw in the chat, or also come off of raise your hand as well. So I want to hear everyone put one goal in the chat they have. It could be to finish school with top marks. It could be anything really. Maybe it's go to a specific university, to not overthink and to be confident. I love that. If anyone wants to raise their hand and maybe share as well.
And I just realized I sent my message. I just changed my settings. I sent it directly to Sai. So Sai, you've got that info. I'm putting it back into the group again for everyone. So you guys should see it now. Apologies about that.
Amazing.
Let's see.
Yeah. Do you want to, Adiraj,
yeah.
do you want to have a question or share a goal with us?
Yeah, I wanted to share my goal that in life, I wanted to become a national badminton champion and play for India. Plus, I wanted to become a businessman and have millions of crores.
Okay. So with that goal, you would want to start figuring out how do you break it down into attainable goals. So you go through that same model, the SMART model, and you say, if I look at that big goal, and then you reverse engineer it, you go backwards. In order to get there, what needs to come before it? And you keep doing that all the way until you get to where you are now. Now, a lot of times some people say, I have this goal and I know where I am right now. I don't know what's in between. I don't know what steps I need. That is totally okay. But then the question becomes, how do I find out? So a lot of times that means finding people who are already doing what you aspire to do, reaching out to them, reaching out in a friendly, professional, appropriate way, finding them on LinkedIn, or finding them, if they're on Instagram and you're on Instagram or Twitter, whatever it is, and reaching out and saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm Stephanie. My goal is to, become a professional athlete in the same sport as you. And I'm curious if you might have 15 minutes. Can I, talk to you for 15 minutes? Now, a lot of times you don't get a response back. That's kind of the entrepreneur life. I can't tell you how many of those messages I have sent out and 0 response, but sometimes you get a response. And when you get a response, that typically turns into a really beautiful mentoring relationship, even if it's only once a year, where the person tells you about their journey, you're able to ask them more specific questions. And with that information, then you can start to identify, okay, I need to learn this skill. Apparently, this one experience is really important, and you can start building that. Does that answer your question? Or I guess it wasn't really a question, but it was sharing your goal. But thank you for sharing.
I
And I'm
love if
seeing
yeah,
cool
there's so many in the
share.
Thank you.
chat. Maybe Stephanie, if you want to pick someone from the chat to maybe expand on, I'll throw it over to you.
Sure. Mahir, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I'm seeing attain financial and chronological freedom. I'd like to hear more about that.
Yes, so yeah, thank you for pronouncing my name right. That's a rare occurrence, by the way.
Good
And good morning to you. So yeah,
morning.
to tell you more about that, my goal only is to just have the freedom to do what I want to do at a specific time. It's not like I want to do a lot of things and I want to be able to do everything. It's just that I shouldn't have to be held up by some sort of obstructions. Like I see a lot of people around me, if I call them on a small trip somewhere, if I call them to work on a project, they keep saying, I have this commitment, I have that commitment. If I don't do this, I'll be in trouble. If I don't do that, I'll be in trouble. It's just that I want to break out of that cycle and have the freedom financially and in my time schedule as well to be able to do what I want to do. I don't want to be tied down to something and tied down by something.
Right. Okay. So I'm hearing that for you, the feeling of being tied down is something you're really trying to avoid.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. And the freedom that you want in your mind when you're doing the work you want to do, how is that different than being tied down?
See, if I'm doing something I want to do, it shouldn't be like I'm being forced to do it. It should be of my own free will. If I'm choosing to tie myself down to that, that should be fine.
Okay.
It's like that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's really important and it sounds very entrepreneurial. It sounds like if your passion and your values are aligned with the work you're doing, then you don't mind being tied down. But
Yes.
you want that.
Yes.
I think that's great. That actually is a great introduction into an activity I have for us that we will flow into in a little bit. But I think that's really important, keeping in mind the balance, right? I'll give you an example. You might find, or let me ask you, do you know what area you want to work in or you want to develop a business in? Like what sector?
Right now, I'm not completely sure of that, but I do have a few preferences I have.
Okay. So let's just say that you decide on one and you say, I'm really passionate about this area. I'm really interested in it. I'm good at it. So I'm willing to commit to it. Right. Now, again, if we think about that like meta level, high level, we know that you're committed to that field or to that goal. But when you become an entrepreneur, the day to day oftentimes doesn't look like that goal. So if you're an entrepreneur of a business, especially if you're a founder in the tech world and you're starting out, I can tell you from personal experience, 85 to 90% of the work I was doing every single day had nothing to do with the stuff I wanted to do. And that sometimes is one of the biggest difficulties of being an entrepreneur, especially early on. You do not have the capital to have somebody else do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And you're doing all the small tasks that you wish somebody else would do for you. And until you get there, you have to do it. And that's a big mindset shift for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's oftentimes why they leave the company early. It's one of the reasons I left is because there's too much imbalance of doing what you love and doing what needs to be done for the company. Eventually, you will get to a point where you're like, okay, now a lot of the work I'm doing is what I really love doing. But just keeping that in mind, right? Of the sacrifice that will be necessary, that sacrifice, it will still be a sacrifice of your freedom. It'll just look different. It'll just be, hopefully, right? Keeping the big picture in mind, it'll be towards something that you're really passionate about.
Yes, that
But thank
really
you for
helps.
sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic goal. And I wish we had enough time to like go through every single goal. By the way, kids, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm kind of a little bit of a grandma, which is ironic when it comes to tech. Ironic because I'm like in tech. It might be because of that. But I am not on socials except for LinkedIn. I might be on YouTube in the future, somewhat soon. But find me on LinkedIn. Let me see my name in here. Yep, Dr. Stephanie Palacios. You'll see a picture of me. Feel free if you have an account already, we can connect. I I meet with students regularly. I offer coaching sessions for students as well. And I'd be more than happy to answer questions that may come up from this meeting today. I am accessible to you guys, and the best way that I can be. Might take a little bit for me to answer, but I will answer.